Today I'm talking about how do you, as a researcher, learn good practices about how to write. Let's begin by talking about why you should care about this. Papers last longer than code. So even though you may think as a computer scientist, I don't need to do this, I just need to be a good programmer, that's not an accurate representation of what an academic career is like. Ideas are how you build your career, and publications are currency. And while you can get a middling idea published with good writing, the reverse isn't true. If you have a fantastic idea but you can't explain to anyone how it works, it's not going to get published. And eventually, once you become faculty, you need to get money for your ideas, and that is entirely done through writing. You write an application for a grant, and if they like your writing, you get money. And even if you say, well, I'm not going into academia, I'm going to go into industry, the same thing is true there. You need to convince the senior vice president to allocate workers, to allocate coders, to allocate computing resources to a project, and oftentimes you need to write up your proposal in a memo, and you need to be able to write that well. And even if you leave research altogether, this is the skill that translates the best in today's knowledge economy. You need to be able to express your ideas to someone else, and writing, communication, is the way to do that. How do you get there? How do you get to being a good writer? And so Norman Ramsey has 7 principles of best practice, and writing will not come quickly, but good writing is achieved through brief daily sessions. You need to build the habit of writing and focus on writing every day. Don't worry about the word count. Sometimes you just need to fail at writing to succeed at writing the next day. And writing is not just putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, it's also about thinking about writing. Sometimes you need to do something before you write, you need to outline, you need to talk to people. That's all part of the process, that counts too, and don't feel frustrated if all you've done is write an outline. That's often the most important part of writing. And don't worry about bad first drafts. A good draft is a done draft. And don't worry about page limits. Once you have the ideas on paper, you can cut them down. And that is an important part of the writing process as well, but you first need to get it on paper. As you think about writing, you should think about writing as documenting the ideas, not documenting the work. And one common problem that I see is that people write the paper where the length of a section is proportional to how hard it was to actually do the thing. And that's not the best way to sell a reader that your ideas are correct. You need to convince the reader that your idea is so elegant, so beautiful, that of course it's correct. I'm going to do that. That's the way I'm going to think about it. Even though the first time someone does something is very difficult, you need to show that yours is the right way, and your thoughts are elegant. And so you need to think about what's the best way to get the reader of the paper to where you are today. So every writer needs a reader. How do you find readers for your paper? So the first thing I would emphasize is that oftentimes, especially early in the process, the best readers are not people who know much about your subject area. And so you can ask friends, family, am I explaining what's going on? Does it make sense? Have I convinced you that it's important? People in your field know that it's important. You need to convince someone else that it's important. But you only get one opportunity to get a first read, so use this judiciously. One resource that I think is criminally overlooked is the Writing Center. And so most universities, including the University of Maryland, have an excellent Writing Center where there are people who are trained to read papers, to give you feedback, and to give you advice. They're like a coach on the writing process. So take advantage of it. They are not computer scientists, usually, but they know about writing and they know about talking about writing, and that's often very useful. I myself was a Writing Center tutor. Even when I was working there as a tutor, I would go there and get other people's advice. You should also be sending out your writing to competitors. They're going to see your work eventually, and they know the work best, and so it's better to get their feedback. Over the years, you build up relationships and you get into habit of sending each other very early drafts of your papers, and this is a good way of learning about what's going on and to to see other people's writing process, and you can learn a lot from that as well. And then, of course, obviously, and this is the one that you probably already do, have other people in your lab read what you write. The problem here is that you need to write early, and so this goes back to the Ramsey principles that we talked about before. You need to start your draft early enough so that you can ask other people to read it. Get people who are very similar to the pool of reviewers that you're going to get at the end when you submit your paper to a journal or a conference. Once you get feedback, you should actually listen to the reviewers. Let them describe the paper to you. Don't say anything. Let them tell you the main idea of the paper. Treat every review like gold dust. It's very precious. And be truly grateful for the criticism as well as the praise that you get. And every criticism is an opportunity for improvement. And so don't react like, no, I didn't mean that, you idiot. That means that you didn't explain something correctly. And so fix a paper so that even those idiots can actually understand it, like the much maligned reviewer too. And it's also important in reviewer responses when conference reviews come back and you need to interact with the reviewers. And so be grateful in those author responses and reflect your gratitude to the reviewers in those author responses. This is just a single lecture from a course. YouTube likes to show you these videos out of order, but if you go to the course webpage linked below, you can see the lectures in the right order, and you can get resources like homeworks or suggested reading. You can also visit quanta.org if you want to learn about our systems for creating computers that can answer questions, where Quanta stands for question answering is not a trivial activity. If you want to help the channel, provide a big gradient to the algorithm by liking and subscribing.